Hi everyone, here's some of what's heading your way tonight to your news at 9.
The pandemic put local health departments in the spotlight. It also put a strain on their staff and resources. I'm Chris Warner. We're going to talk with a couple of local health departments about how they feel they handled the response to the pandemic and what they could have done better.
More Americans are getting vaccinated as the CDC issues a new warning about a fast-spreading COVID strain. I'm David Lee Miller in New York. The details coming up.
A historic building in downtown Joplin is being transformed into a hotel. I'm Zach Dodge with when the first visitors could start booking their rooms. Coming up.
Doug Heddy weather. This is KOAM News at 9 on Fox 14.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Jordan Obby. 2 people are dead from separate accidents involving utility terrain vehicles in southwest Missouri. The first happened on a private trail near Highway 90, 10 miles east of Jane, Missouri. A man and woman got off a UTV, began walking toward another that had overturned. Then the vehicle they had just left began rolling downhill, struck them both. 63-year-old Dennis Hurley of Warsaw, Missouri was killed. 60-year-old Jacqueline Hurley has moderate injuries. The other accident happened around 3 miles south of Shell Knob, Missouri. 59-year-old Sherry Rains of Shell Knob was a passenger on a UTV. She was killed when the UTV overturned while backing up. 2 people, including a Neosho, Missouri resident and a dog, are dead after a plane crash in Colorado. The Federal Aviation Administration says the single-engine aircraft which took off from Neosho hit power lines and crashed while approaching the airport. The victims' identities have not yet been released. Investigators from the NTSB and the FAA are looking into this accident. Person is in the hospital after this crash on Highway 69 this evening near Centennial in Pittsburgh. An officer on scene said that a semi and car crashed head-on, and the truck burst into flames. The semi driver is okay. We are being told the driver of the car has been taken to the hospital. However, there's no word yet on the driver's condition. A judge sentences a Joplin man in the stabbing of a man at Dave's Mini Mart in March of last year. James Turnbull took an Alford plea on the charge of second-degree assault. An Alford plea means the defendant isn't admitting guilt, but acknowledges they will likely be found guilty by a jury. Turnbull is sentenced to 7 years in prison, which will run alongside his other current sentences. Meteorologist Doug Heddy joining us now with the first look at the forecast. You got to help me, man. I'm running out of words to describe this heat. It's hot. There's always that.
Yeah, I mean, what do you say? It's been hot outside. It's continuing to be hot as we go through the next
Doug, your mic's not on.
That's twice in a week. All right, it is hot out there. 94 for a high. Average high is 86 degrees, so a pretty good chunk above where we should be for this time of the year. We had some clouds, even a few isolated little thunderstorms down through northwestern parts of Arkansas, but most of us have been dry and will stay that way as we go through the overnight hours tonight. Big dome of high pressure out to our west, and what this is doing is keeping us mainly hot and mainly dry, and this is going to continue as we go through the next few days. In fact, after 9 o'clock, it's still low to mid 80s across the region. When are we going to cool down? We're going to look at that here in a bit.
Don't sweat it, man. At least you have your microphone on. Sometimes I don't even have it on.
Yeah, I had it on. I just didn't have it on.
Flip that switch.
Yeah.
It'll do it. It'll do it. All right, Doug Heddy, we'll see you in a little bit. Thank you so much. More than a year into this pandemic, local health departments are looking back at how their responses have stacked up. KOAM's Chris Warner spoke with the Crawford County and Newton County health departments on what they've learned and how they feel they did.
Over the past 15 months, local health departments have been put front and center in the public's eye due to the pandemic. We checked in with 2 of the many local health departments in our area to see how they feel about their response to the pandemic so far. In Crawford County, Teddy Van Kam says for her, the biggest area to improve was managing staffing. She created teams, but feels it could have been better.
And I think I would have created that sooner and rotated people out a little bit sooner because, fatigue is one of your biggest enemies when you're trying to work through a pandemic.
In Newton County, Larry Bergner says his biggest obstacle was technology.
When we had the numbers spike rapidly, we found that we needed more computer programs, space, more programs that would help us to file and track and enter the data into the computer systems.
And as time went on, both departments feel they got into the hang of things quickly.
In public health, you train for disasters all the time. And it's just part of being public health. So, we have a preparedness program and we have policies and procedures and we practice them.
The healthcare community came together. We shared resources, we shared communication, data, and that was a very good thing, and it helped us get the resources out to the community much faster than otherwise would have been able to.
Bergner is hopeful that not only will the communities see the value of the local health department, but those in positions of power will as well.
We certainly hope that they will see that there is a need to increase local budgets so that when we need those upgrades in technology, or when we need to quickly provide more personnel to tackle the pandemic or what's going on in the community, that we will have the funds available to do that.
I'm Chris Warner for KOAM News.
Both health departments want to remind residents that they have returns to providing the normal services community members expect, like WIC, Women's Health, and immunizations. More than 65% of American adults have gotten at least one shot, and reopenings are accelerating, but the Delta variant could put a stop to it. Fox News correspondent David Lee Miller has more from New York City.
More states are reopening as vaccination rates rise, but a COVID mutation is threatening to derail that progress. It's called the Delta variant, a more contagious, more deadly strain of COVID-19 than the original, now accounting for roughly 6% of all cases in the U.S. It was first detected in India, and it's now spread to dozens of countries. And if the current trend continues, Delta could be the most dominant strain worldwide.
It's in every state, I believe, except for like Hawaii and Vermont. And as we saw, unfortunately, it pulverized India as their third wave, where they lost thousands daily because of this variant.
That's significant because it's more deadly than the original strain and more likely to result in hospitalization. The CDC now listing Delta as a variant of concern, meaning it could require further scrutiny by health agencies to examine how it spreads and how it will affect patients.
Reports out of the United Kingdom show a different set of symptoms characterizing the Delta variant, specifically headache, runny nose, and sore throat.
Despite the threat posed by the variant, reopenings are moving forward in a number of states, including New York and California. Federal health officials now looking at ways to protect the public as millions of Americans get back to work.
We're not going to let any research lapse or go undone that helps us understand how we better protect our workforce, because we saw what happens when we don't protect those essential workers.
The CDC says those fully vaccinated with either Pfizer or Moderna should be protected against the Delta variant. In New York, David Lee Miller, Fox News.
A historic building in downtown Joplin is being transformed into a business-class hotel. KOAM's Zach Dodge has details on why guests may be able to book a room sooner than you may think.
It'll be 1917 looking, but it'll have all the high-tech stuff of today.
The Robertson Apartments, a 100-year-old building at 410 South Wall in downtown Joplin, is getting a major facelift. First built in 1917, the Robertson was a very popular, state-of-the-art apartment complex for decades.
Back when it first opened, they always had a very lengthy waiting list because people wanted to live there due to the amenities and how modern it was at the time and its location.
Jill Sullivan at the Post Art Library explains it had tenants up into the early 2000s until the maintenance was let go and it became uninhabitable. Now, some 20 years later, windows are broken and boarded, brick is missing from pillars, and weeds are overtaking the lot. But plans are moving forward to turn it into a business-class hotel.
It's going to be an even more significant investment, yes.
Radisson Hotel Group Americas just signed the building onto their Radisson Individuals line of hotels, with plans to include 55 rooms and suites, a fitness center, and a 1,200 square foot meeting space.
That's something we've been missing here, is to be able to do everything, visitors to do everything in downtown. So I think it's definitely an important piece, and particularly with like the Cornell complex coming in and some of the other things that are happening and moving in downtown.
Like Lori Hahn just said, there's a lot of momentum coming to downtown, which is good for the city, but can be a hassle for people looking for somewhere to park.
We have a plan in place. We're not ready to release it, but we're working with some other adjacent property owners, and and looking at some other alternatives as well.
So we'll have to see how parking is handled. Something else that remains to be seen is how they plan to hit their targeted completion date of fall this year, just a few short months from now.
I think it's doable. We built the Hampton Inn in 6 months one time. We're not going to compromise quality or code to get it done. We hope to be open then. That's but if we aren't, then we'll keep pushing forward.
In Joplin, Zach Dodge, KOAM News.
Radisson says the Robertson Hotel is going to be the first hotel to open in downtown Joplin in more than 50 years. KOAM News at 9 and Fox 14 takes this time now to honor another four-state hero. Jack Howell served in the U.S. Army, spending time in Iraq, earning numerous awards. And we are proud to thank Jack Howell, a native of Joplin, tonight's four-state hero. Doug Caddy's up next with a complete look at the forecast. And a bit later, how the Biden administration wants to fundamentally reshape education across the country.
From KOAM.com.
Well, of course, it turned out to be a very hot, humid day for us today, heating up again into the mid-90s during the afternoon. And this is what we're going to see as we go through the next couple days, really. Temperatures maybe even heating up a little bit more than what we did see today. High heat indices as well, anywhere from 100 to about 105. But we do have some changes in sight, which is good. Storm system is going to roll in by the time we head into late Sunday into Monday. That's going to bring us chances for showers and thunderstorms. Also cooler temperatures. Of course, you can get my long-range forecast on my month-long blog. That is KOAMnewsnow.com. Great time lapse. Indigo Sky Casino and Resort. Of course, Indigo is just outside of Seneca, Missouri, but pretty much clear skies most of the day. Nice shot of the sun setting during the evening hours. And look at our temps for us right now. Most of us are sitting, or at least highs, most of us were sitting into the mid-90s, even upper 90s in our western counties. We've cooled off a bit, but it's still warm. 85 in Chanute, 83 in Miami, 85 in Neosho. Lamar is sitting at about 84 degrees, and I think we'll drop back near 70 later on tonight. But our humidity is back up. Look at our dew point, 70 to about 75. So this is really at the top of the scale, kind of in that muggy to soupy range, and that's where we're going to be sitting as we go through the next couple days. Looks good, looking off toward the north, currently outside, sitting at 82, south winds at about 5, humidity is at 74%. Not too much going on for us, at least around our neck of the woods. We did get some cumulus clouds and a couple isolated little thunderstorms, mainly to our south across northwestern parts of Arkansas. But besides that, not too much going on across Central Plains due to this big dome of high pressure kind of keeping us hot and dry. We get these weak little waves that kind of rotate around it, and that's why we get these afternoon random pop-up storms. But besides that, it's going to stay pretty dry. We'll get some thunderstorms east of us late tonight into tomorrow morning. There's a slight chance we could get an isolated thunderstorm tomorrow afternoon. I really think 99% of us will stay dry, starting at 71. 91 by noon, high temp right around 96 during the afternoon. Tomorrow night, again, we'll drop back into the mid-70s. We'll watch some thunderstorms by Friday, mainly in our northern counties. And then it looks like by Friday afternoon, again, we're going to heat up into the upper 90s for highs, and we'll have those high heat indices across the region. In fact, let's look at our heat indices. For us tomorrow, right around 100, 101 degrees, maybe even a notch or two higher by Friday. So it's going to feel very hot, very humid as we go through the next couple days. At least we do have some relief in sight by the second half of the weekend. 96 tomorrow, 96 Friday, 93 Saturday. Father's Day still 94. But look at this, Monday high 79.
Yeah.
That's a big switch. 80 on Tuesday, 84 on Wednesday.
That 79 and 80s looks so good.
It's going to feel much better than what we have seen.
Yeah. Doug, we'll see you in a little bit. Thank you so much. Well, the push to implement critical race theory is causing uproar in some school districts as more students return to in-person learning amid the coronavirus pandemic. Fox News Chief Washington correspondent Mike Emanuel has these details.
This is the fight of our lives, and we're going to win.
While Loudoun County, Virginia may be ground zero in the fight against critical race theory, The Biden administration is planning to host an equity summit with educators next week, seeking to fundamentally reshape education across the country.
I wrote down the 3 R's. We talk about reading, writing, arithmetic. No. Reopening, reinvesting in our schools, and reimagining the potential.
The Department of Education Reopening Guidebook recommends re-examining, quote, exclusionary discipline practices like suspending students in favor of mental health counseling and culturally and linguistically inclusive curriculums. Critics say this is code for radical policies and programs that will ultimately educate American children in a discriminatory and harmful way.
It's more geared around social and emotional learning. And if our students aren't reading on grade level, let's teach our kids how to read. If our kids cannot count and cannot do the basic 1, 2, 3s, let's teach our kids mathematics.
There are also questions about why $41 billion in COVID relief funds from the American Rescue Plan are being repurposed to support progressive education policies that have nothing to do with the pandemic. The latest push for additional racial focus from the administration is likely to further aggravate the tension in the name of equity.
We need to make sure that education is a great equalizer, and that starts now. That starts now with our planning for the fall.
Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell calls it Washington Democrats imposing their radical preferences on the American people.
The Department of Education's latest proposed priorities run roughshod over existing history and civics programs in order to push critical race theory on public school students and keep pace with woke sensibilities.
Cardona is likely to face some challenging questions from Republicans tomorrow when he appears before a Senate panel looking at proposed budget estimates and justification for the Department of Education. In Washington, Mike Emanuel, Fox News.
Coming up, the meeting.
President Biden and President Putin sat down here in Switzerland for high-stakes talks face-to-face. I'm Lauren Blanchard in Geneva. More on what the two world leaders had to say coming up.
Thursday morning is
4,700. Must be 21 years or older.
President Biden is on his way back to the United States after 3 hours of wide-ranging talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin. It was face-to-face diplomacy on neutral ground in Switzerland. Fox's Lauren Blanchard is at the summit site in Geneva with more.
Here in Switzerland, both President Biden and President Putin sounded positive yet realistic following their Geneva summit. President Joe Biden departing on Air Force One for Washington after talks that Russian President Vladimir Putin called constructive and President Biden suggested was time well spent.
When the last time two heads of state have spent over 2 hours in direct conversation across the table, going into excruciating detail?
The two sides had a lot to talk about, from human rights to limiting nuclear weapons. But cybersecurity was perhaps the most pressing topic at this summit, especially after recent hack attacks blamed on groups in Russia disrupted a key U.S. gas pipeline and a global meat processor.
I talked about the proposition that certain critical infrastructure should be off limits to attack, period. By cyber or any other means. I gave them a list.
President Putin denied any Russian involvement in ransomware attacks and flipped the script.
Most of the cyber attacks in the world are carried out from the cyber realm of the United States.
Critics say President Biden handed President Putin a victory just by agreeing to sit down with him on the international stage, and that not holding a joint press conference allowed for unchecked Russian propaganda.
And you didn't have an American president standing there saying, wait a minute, that's not right, and confronting it.
The White House says President Biden gave President Putin a pair of custom aviator sunglasses and a crystal sculpture of an American bison. In Geneva, Lauren Blanchard, Fox News.
Just ahead, a leak revealing years of tax information.
The FBI opens an investigation into the IRS data leak. I'm David Spunt in Washington. Details coming up.
You Homes.
Lawmakers are calling for criminal charges after tax data from the wealthiest Americans was leaked. The incident generating concern about the security of tax information. Fox News correspondent David Spunt has more.
The FBI is now officially investigating an IRS leak of personal income and tax data from some of the world's wealthiest. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen told lawmakers today she doesn't know how this happened.
We're only 1 week out on this, and I really want to emphasize we do not know what happened. We don't have any facts. It is absolutely top priority to safeguard taxpayer data.
Last week, the nonprofit publication ProPublica released a report claiming the 25 richest Americans have paid little or no federal income tax over the past several years. ProPublica says it obtained thousands of tax returns for the wealthiest, spanning 15 years. The IRS is conducting an internal investigation, but the report has generated bipartisan concern over the security of tax information. Lawmakers, including Senators Mike Crapo, Chuck Grassley, and Mitch McConnell, are demanding criminal charges.
Actual consequences as a matter of justice and as a practical deterrent. The federal government owes taxpayers nothing less.
ProPublica says it doesn't know the source of the information. Over the weekend, the publication's editor-in-chief said this about an investigation.
It certainly is hard to argue that they don't have a right to ask themselves what went wrong here. Nonetheless, we would prefer they not grab our records.
President Biden has proposed ending the trust fund loophole used by the wealthy to hand down their assets to their heirs without paying taxes. In Washington, David Spunt, Fox News.
Two meteorologists decided to make their wedding proposal one they will really remember. Yeah, look at that in the background. More on this when we come back.
Nominate your four-state hero.
Oklahoma-Missouri border.
A twist on a traditional wedding proposal in Colorado. A man getting on one knee right there to pop a big question with a tornado as a backdrop. Tom Bedard and Rhea Madej are both weather fanatics. They work for AccuWeather in Wichita as meteorologists, actually. Over Memorial Day weekend, they decided to drive to Colorado to get up close and personal with a tornado. The duo had never seen one in person. And this is when Tom decided to make the moment extra special and proposed in the midst of stormy weather and rain. Obviously, Rhea said yes. She's happy the severe weather worked in her favor. So here's hoping their married days have more sunny days. Cheesy, but you hope for that. 30 more minutes, news, weather, and sports coming your way.
The Wall Street Journal says lumber prices are falling back to earth, but does that mean you'll see lower lumber prices at your local lumber yard? The experts at Pittsburgh's Broadway Lumber share their thoughts coming up.
Plus, Crowder College hosting hundreds of junior high students looking to get an edge in technical programs. Wall Street Journal and Fortune.com say lumber prices are falling fast, but the operation manager at Pittsburgh's Broadway Lumber says that doesn't mean four-staters are going to see 2019 prices at their local lumber yards anytime soon. KOAM's Mike Mahoney has a story.
Sky-high lumber prices caused by the pandemic have had an impact on Joplin's Create and Sip studios by making popular do-it-yourself wooden signs unaffordable.
I would be offering a lot more wood classes. It's really hard for me to keep up with the inventory on it to be able to offer it as often as I once was. And so it's now mainly a specialty kind of class and offered only to private party classes.
But this could be a temporary situation for the studio and others who rely on affordable lumber. The Wall Street Journal reports that futures for July delivery ended Tuesday at almost $1,010 per thousand board feet, down 41% from the record of a bit over $1,711 reached in early May. And as for the prices that distributors pay from sawmills, Fortune.com says that the cash price of lumber is down 20% from the all-time high set on May 28th. But the operations manager of Broadway Lumber in Pittsburgh warns consumers that won't translate into an immediate price drop at your local lumber yard.
The futures are the futures. The current prices will not reflect that immediately, obviously.
But that doesn't mean lower store prices won't eventually come back to customers as the lumber market stabilizes, which is what Broadway Lumber's operation manager thinks is behind the current price and futures drop.
It's a calming down of events that have just, like you say, just skyrocketed over the last several months. And now we're seeing that I think people are just becoming more cautious, and a lot of large buyers have decided to take it easy and therefore stabilize the price because the demand has gone down.
And if the market stays calm with lumber prices lowering at the lumber yard, wooden sign classes and a whole lot more will come back to create and sip.
Once prices reach down, yeah, I'll be able to afford to offer up more of the projects that I used to and even add some of the ones that I thought about adding before the situation happened.
In Joplin and Pittsburgh, Mike Mahoney, KOAM News.
According to Fortune.com, home builders and do-it-yourselfers who complained at those inflated lumber prices also played a role in the current price drop. Carl Junction Police Chief Delmar Haas announced his retirement today after 16 years in the position. In a statement on Facebook, Haas said, quote, "Carl Junction has become my adopted hometown. It is a great place to live." Haas's last day is July 6th. Junior high students looking to improve their technical education are taking some summer programs over at Crowner College. 150 students will be on campus for 4 weeks, with each week focusing on a different program. Those programs include agriculture, automotive technology, computer technology, engineering, criminal justice, and health science. Missouri Southern Board of Governors approved 2 new degree programs and a tuition increase. The 2 new degree programs are a Bachelor of Science in Biomedical Sciences and a Master of Arts in Teacher Education. The tuition increase amounts to a 4% increase for undergraduates. Airstrikes were carried out near the Israel-Gaza border Wednesday. Tensions there remaining high after last month's ceasefire. Fox News correspondent Trey Yingst has more.
A tense situation along the Israel-Gaza border. Israeli aircraft carrying out airstrikes at militant sites in the Gaza Strip early Wednesday. The first since a ceasefire ended an 11-day war with Hamas last month. The Israeli military says the strikes targeted facilities used by Hamas militants to plan attacks. There were no immediate reports of casualties. The strikes come after people in Gaza reportedly launched incendiary balloons that sparked multiple fires in southern Israel. The balloon attack was launched in response to a flag march on Tuesday celebrating Israel's capture of East Jerusalem in 1967. Hundreds of Israeli ultra-nationalists took part, with some reportedly chanting, quote, "Death to Arabs." The Jerusalem Post reporting that Hamas called for a day of rage to counter the march.
Their presence here by the wall, uttering foul language and making inappropriate gestures, is provocative.
We're a free nation. This is exactly why the Jewish people came here to establish their own national state.
The march was seen as the first major test for Israel's new government, led by Prime Minister Naftali Bennett. Some say the biggest challenge will come from the country's opposition leader, former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
The way that Netanyahu is actually going to do it is through the international arena. Big issues about the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, about Iran, and about Jerusalem.
Benjamin Netanyahu says he won't back down and vows to oust the governing coalition. In Jerusalem, Trey Yingst, Fox News.
A bit later, the give and take in D.C.
A bipartisan group of lawmakers holding talks about an infrastructure package. I'm Madler Rivera in Washington with a closer look at what's being discussed.
From K tonight at 6:30 right here on Fox 14.
Well, of course, it was hot once again for us today. It's really been hot for about the past 10 days. Temperatures right around 90 degrees, if not warmer than that. And today we went into the mid-90s during the afternoon. We're going to continue to heat up over the next few days. Also, those heat indices are going to be on the high side. We do get chances for showers and thunderstorms in here late Sunday into Monday, and this cools us back down a bit. So until then, we got to deal with the extreme heat, but we are going to see some changes, which is good news. Indigo Sky Casino and Resort, of course, time lapse just outside of Seneca, Missouri. Pretty good time lapse throughout the daytime hours. Zooming in, look at our highs. Most of us mid to upper 90s and then low to mid 90s on the Missouri and Arkansas side. So Oklahoma and Kansas a little bit hotter. Now we are sitting into lower 80s. We'll drop off about another 10 degrees or so as we go through the overnight hours tonight. But look at our humidity. This is our dew point. This measures how much moisture is in the atmosphere and puts it in a degree form. Anytime you get into the 70s, it's close to the top of the scale. Kind of puts us in that muggy to soupy range, and that's where we're going to sit the next few days. All right, outside right now, currently sitting 82 winds out of the south at 5. Humidity is at 74%. We had a few isolated little thunderstorms that popped up just southeast of the region, but we've been mainly dry. A few random little thunderstorms due to this big ridge of high pressure out to the west. So every now and then we get a weak little wave that rotates around it. But until this high breaks down, we're definitely going to have the heat and the humidity sticking around. All right, let's go through time tonight. Some thunderstorms central parts of Missouri. We're going to stay just west of them, but we're going to get some clouds for the morning hours. Then partly sunny, hot, humid again. Very similar to today. Slight chance for an isolated storm. High temp right around 96. Tomorrow night looks fine. Then as we head into Friday, any thunderstorms will mainly stay to our north. But again, our temperatures are going to go into the upper 90s for high. So it's going to be very hot over the next couple days. Let's look at our heat indices. Near 100 tomorrow. That's the way it actually feels to your skin. 102, 103, 104 by the time we head into Friday. So it gets a little bit worse as we go through the next couple days. But like I said, there are some changes. Let's go into the weekend. Some tropical moisture to our southeast. Finally, by Sunday, here comes a cold front. Now, we're going to be ahead of it, so it's going to be hot. This is Father's Day. Scattered thunderstorms late into Sunday night and Monday morning. We'll have showers, but very, well, significantly cooler, actually. By the time we head into Monday and Tuesday, very pleasant across the region, which will be well-deserved. All right, 96 tomorrow, 96 on Friday, 93 Saturday, 94 on Father's Day, and then cooling back down early next week.
It's amazing how much water you drink, and it's still not good enough.
Yeah, you got to be careful when it gets this hot.
You absolutely do. All right, Doug, thank you so much. Coming up, growing frustration at the southern border.
A Democratic congressman is making a plea to Vice President Kamala Harris to join him right here at the border. I'm Bill Malugin in La Joya, Texas. We'll have that story for you coming up.
Migrants not heeding the calls by the Biden administration to stay home and not make the journey to the U.S. border, crossing by the hundreds, if not thousands, each day. And now a Democrat congressman is making a plea to Vice President Kamala Harris to join him at the border to see the crisis for herself. Fox News correspondent Bill Milligan has more from the southern border in Texas.
Hundreds of migrants continue to pour across the southern U.S. border every day. This despite the vice president and other members of the Biden administration saying the border is closed. And the already treacherous trek to the border just got even more dangerous in the blistering heat. Throughout the day, groups of migrants walk across the border into Texas and turn themselves into authorities, hoping they have a chance to stay in the country. And on Tuesday, Fox cameras captured a group of roughly 30 who crossed into the Lone Star State, then sat down by a tree and waited to be apprehended, with authorities in the area overextended. The group saying they didn't hear Vice President Kamala Harris's message to stay home during their 18-day trek from Ecuador. Harris is tasked with curbing the flow of migrants, prompting Texas's Democrat Congressman Henry Cuellar to write a letter inviting her to come to the border with him to get first-hand looks at the surge and talk to those impacted, according to the Washington Post.
Landowners are concerned. Local sheriffs are concerned. Local police are concerned. Somebody needs to listen to our local communities. Without due respect, just coming doing a stage visit is not enough.
But some Republicans say Vice President Harris is turning a blind eye to the problem.
Kamala Harris is sending a clear message. She doesn't care. She doesn't want to hear it. She doesn't care. She's not calling Governor Abbott. She knows she's in charge, and people are suffering as a result.
Now, whether or not Vice President Kamala Harris will actually take up Democratic Congressman Cuellar on his offer to come down here remains to be seen. In La Joya, Texas, Bill Malugin, Fox News.
Back with more news after this. As a bipartisan group of senators work on an infrastructure deal, Democratic leaders are also hoping to pass a second package without Republicans through a process called reconciliation. But they're running into another obstacle themselves. Fox's Madeline Rivera has more on the details on the Democratic infighting.
Defining what infrastructure is and what it isn't has been a sticking point for lawmakers on Capitol Hill. Republicans have stuck to a traditional definition: roads, bridges, rail. But many Democrats say no infrastructure bill is complete without steps on how to address climate change.
We got to put our money where our mouth is and actually create global modern and be a global leader in modern infrastructure.
Their desire to go big and bold is threatening the prospects of a bipartisan plan in Congress before all of its details have even been released. That proposal, currently being negotiated by 5 Republicans and 5 Democrats, is expected to cost $1.2 trillion over 8 years.
I think our focus is on a bipartisan proposal that focuses on true infrastructure and doesn't raise taxes.
On Wednesday, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer convened a meeting with Democratic members of the Senate Budget Committee. The meeting was held in part to set the process of reconciliation in motion as Democratic leaders push for a second, more ambitious infrastructure package.
The first track is bipartisan. The second track pulls in elements of President Biden's American Jobs and Families Plan.
Reconciliation, however, would require the support of all 50 Democrats in the Senate, and moderate Senator Joe Manchin says he won't guarantee the passage of a reconciliation bill. Republicans, meanwhile, warn against it.
I think Democrats seem intent upon trying to jam Republicans again with reconciliation. I hope they don't, but it looks like they're intent to.
Senator Schumer plans to bring the more extensive spending bill and the scaled-down infrastructure deal to the floor in July. In Washington, Mallory Rivera, Fox News.
Gonna check out a new Beauty and the Beast musical series on Disney Plus when we come back. A Disney classic getting a backstory, and Jennifer Lopez, J-Lo, announces a new sci-fi project. Fox's Ashley Dvorkin takes a look in today's Hollywood Nation.
J-Lo's AI thriller, Troll Hunters Trilogy, and telling more of that tale as old as time in the Hollywood Nation.
Nobody deserves you.
Disney Plus invites audiences to be their guest for a Beauty and the Beast limited musical series, an 8-episode prequel set years before Belle met the Beast. Josh Gad and Luke Evans will reprise their roles as LeFou and Gaston. Brianna Middleton will play LeFou's stepsister, Tilly. The story follows the trio on an unexpected journey filled with romance, comedy, and adventure, with a soundtrack by award-winning composer Alan Menken. Production begins spring of 2022. DreamWorks and Netflix share a first look at Troll Hunters Rise of the Titans, co-written and executive produced by Guillermo del Toro. The film marks the culmination of del Toro's Tales of Arcadia trilogy and features heroes from the Troll Hunters, Three Below, and Wizard series teaming up for an epic adventure. The famous voice cast includes Emil Hirsch, Kelsey Grammer, Stephen Yeun, Tatiana Maslany, Nick Offerman, and Cheryl Hines. It premieres July 21st. And Jennifer Lopez shares one of her projects from her first look deal with Netflix will be Atlas. The futuristic sci-fi thriller follows a woman fighting for humanity, taking on a rogue AI while teaming up with another AI. Lopez will star and produce with Brad Payton directing. In Hollywood, Ashley Dvorkin, Fox News.
And that's our time for tonight. Thanks so much for joining us. Going to leave you with video of peacocks, pretty peacocks in Pakistan. Be safe. Do this all again tomorrow. See you then.